All right, students, I'm going to do a real quick ruler explanation, how to do fractions and measuring, and hopefully we can make all those little tiny marks on the tape measure make a little more sense after this. So what I have drawn here is 1 whole inch. That whole inch is divided into a lot of little sections there, and sometimes those sections mean different things, and sometimes those lines are different lengths, just like on this one. You can see all the little tiny marks. And, you know, that line's a little longer, it's longer, but which one is this? I don't remember what. So I hope this will help you figure out what those are. So yeah, there we go. We have 1 whole inch. That line right there, usually it's the longest one. It's in between the whole inch over here and the whole inch over there. But if you cut that 1 whole inch into 2 parts, and you're only measuring to that biggest line, you have one of the 2 parts, and that's 1/2. The longest line between the first mark and the last mark is your 1/2 inch mark. Now, if you take those 1/2 inches there and you divide those in half, you end up with quarters. You end up with 4 parts. That's really the way to think about fractions. That denominator means how many parts was the whole thing cut into. Well, this inch was cut into 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts. So that little line here that is halfway between the half mark and the whole inch is 1/4. We have 1/4, we have 2 quarters, but we don't call it 2 quarters because it's lining up with the biggest line. We call that 1/2. That's important to know to do that. But 1/4, 2 quarters, 3 quarters is that one there that lines up with the longest line between the 1/2 inch mark and the whole inch. If you have 2/4, we don't call it 2/4. It's the same as having 1/2 inch. You see how 2 quarters is the same as 1/2? We never call it 2 quarters because it'll confuse somebody. We have to use the same math language when we're talking to each other, whether we're designers or construction students. So if we cut those quarters into halves, if we make each one of those 2, what do we have? If we cut 4 parts into 4, we can divide each of those 4 parts into halves. Look at this. We get 8. So yes, our quarters are now 1/8. We have taken that whole inch and cut it into 8 individual parts. So yep, 1/8. Now see, if you know what your half is, you can find your quarter by going halfway between 1/2 and the whole number. To find out what your 1/8ths are, you go halfway between the quarter and the whole number to find your 1/8. So we have 1/8. We don't call it 2/8 because it's the same line as a quarter. We don't call it 4/8. 4/8 is the same number as 1/2, as the same as 2 quarters, and it's still the same as 1/2 inch, but that math language is important. 1, 2, 3, 4 parts of 8 total parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is 4 of the 8. 4/8. But we don't call it that. We call it 1/2. So again, same as before. If we have, for instance, 6 of 8 parts, that's not 6/8. We don't call it 6/8. It is 6/8, but we don't call it 6/8. We would call it by the most reduced fraction that we can, and here that's 3/4. Hey there. 6/8 and 3/4 are the same measurement, but people don't use 6/8 on the job site or on a blueprint. So if we cut the 1/8ths in half, we're doubling the number of parts because we're turning 1 part into 2. We're turning that into 2. How many is that? Can you guess? 1/16ths. There are now 16 little parts in that whole inch. So 1/16th. We don't call it 1, 2, 16ths. No, we call it because that lines up with the 1/8 inch mark. 3/16ths, 5/16ths. It's all the odd numbers you'll notice. 7/16ths, 9/16ths, 11/16ths, 13/16ths, and 15/16ths. Most measuring tape that you have on the job site is going to stop at 1/16th of an inch. We don't really need to be more accurate than that. But sometimes if we double 16, if we cut each of those 16ths in half, what do we have? It'd be 30 seconds. There'd be 32 little parts. So I like to think of fractions like pizza. We have 1 whole inch, and we have 1 whole pizza. If we cut it in half, we have half of the pizza, or half of the inch. If we cut the halves in half, we get quarters. And there are 4 quarters. 4 quarters in a dollar. That's why they call it that. We have 1/8 of a pizza. We have 1 of the 8 pieces. We ordered a pizza, cut it into 8 parts, and there was only 1 of them left because somebody else ate 7/8 of that pizza. And 16ths, that little tiny measurement. So it's important to remember, though, that 8/16 is the same as half an inch. So if we were to shade in all those, it's the same thing. We would not call it 8/16. We'd call it 1/2. Okay, those 8ths are still there. Those quarters are still there. Those 16ths are still there, but we're going to call it 1/2 so that we're all speaking the same math language. So bonus tip here, the tape measure that came in the toolboxes that the ADC got are measured down to the 32nds of an inch. So there's, even between the 16ths, there's 1 more in there. And we will not need to know those, but it does make reading that tape measure that came home in the toolboxes really difficult. But I hope that helps. Maybe now that you can see how 1/8 plus 1/8 is a quarter, or how 3/8 plus 1/8 would equal a half, how those denominators would change. I'm going to have this slideshow attached to the Google Classroom, so you'll be able to look at it and tab through it and read all those things on your own. But I hope this helped. I hope it kind of drew some connections for you. And once again, if you don't feel comfortable with measuring, please let me know so we can work on it together. We can measure things together using the same tape measure, and I can put it on camera and show you. But thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Use all these cool skills to build something cool. Thank you.